3. I/AT-LACE. The third confirmed interstellar object in recorded history. And the first one that may not be natural at all. At first glance, it followed the script. Distant, dim. An object barely distinguishable from the noise of the cosmos. But then it started behaving differently. Its brightness surged, not a little dramatically, but the mass, constant. No sign of significant loss, no debris trail large enough to match the flare that defies cometary physics. It's not venting, it's not breaking apart. It's just glowing. If you're still watching, subscribe now. You crave more than answers, you seek what lies beyond. Subscribe now, and be part of the few who never stop searching. And not just invisible light. The real clue came in the infrared. A soft but unmistakable heat signature, radiating in waves even when no visible light was emitted. Like something was warming up beneath a shell. Like something was powering up, a cold object getting hot. For no thermodynamic reason we can explain. That's not something comets do. That's something machines do. Then came the images, subtle changes in its silhouette. Panels maybe. Or sails. Thin structures deploying outward, as if to capture something. Or release it. At that distance from the sun, solar energy is weak. Useless to most spacecraft. But not to theoretical megastructures. Not to probes operating far beyond the capacities of anything we've ever built. And as the anomaly unfolded, something else appeared. A star, Cau Borealis, previously catalogued, previously stable, vanished from visible light. Gone. Just like that. Not extinguished. Not supernova. Not disrupted. It still radiated in the infrared, strong and steady, which meant one thing. It was still there, just cloaked. Something massive was blocking its light. That star didn't dim. It didn't flicker. It didn't decay. It was shrouded. You don't get that with dust clouds. Not that clean. Not that sharp. And when the IR readings came in, they didn't suggest debris or scattering. They suggested heat management. Energy being captured, then re-radiated outward in controlled thermal bands. Just like the theoretical Dyson spheres we've been writing about for decades. A megastructure, built to enclose or orbit a star, not to destroy it, but to harvest it. To drink from the fire of a sun, one photon at a time. And now we're seeing the real possibility. Not in simulation, not in sci-fi novels, but in data, that someone out there already built one. And 3I/AT-LACE might be part of it. A probe, a fragment, a detached node, or maybe a scout, sent ahead, or left behind, to monitor, to report, or simply to observe our system as it passed. But it didn't pass randomly. It's decelerating. Its trajectory isn't just inertial drift. It's been gradually flattening, resisting solar pull without shedding enough mass to justify the change. That's not nature. That's navigation. Then it got stranger. Spectral analysis began returning refractory metals, nickel, cobalt, tungsten, materials that don't belong in such concentration. Not in comets. Not in asteroids. You find those materials in reactors, in turbines, in radiation shielding, and in some bands, gamma pulses. Pulses, not bursts. Rhythmic, controlled, like ticking, like counting. Natural objects don't tick. They spin. They tumble. They decay. They don't count. And that led to the one theory no one wanted to say out loud. Not because it was impossible, but because it might not be. This thing isn't a rock. It's a construct. You're not supposed to say Dyson swarm in serious scientific conversation. Not unless you want to be laughed out of the room. Now, that room is silent. Because if what we're seeing near Cau Borealis is a star wrapped in a heat-managing superstructure, if what we're watching with 3I/AT-LACE is a probe linked to it, then the implications are cosmic. This isn't a Type I civilization, not even a Type II. We're talking about entities operating at the scale of stars, civilizations with mastery over thermodynamics, orbital engineering, and possibly interstellar logistics. You know what that means. It means they're old, not centuries old, not millennia, millions of years ahead, with technology we wouldn't recognize, even if it burned right through our atmosphere. And now we have something right here in our solar system that might be carrying their signature. But 3I/AT LACE didn't come alone. That's the other part. Smaller objects, following its path, at identical velocity, synchronized. Not clumped like debris but spaced like a formation. Whether they're probes, relays, drones, who knows, but the pattern isn't random. And randomness doesn't coordinate like this. That's deliberate movement. Which means maybe this isn't just a flyby, it's a scan, or worse, an extraction. You see, there's another theory, that Dyson spheres or Dyson-like structures aren't just about energy, they're about containment, climate control, biosphere management, even weaponization. A civilization doesn't just build around a star for fun, it does it to survive, or to evolve, or maybe to harvest. And if 3I/AT LACE is part of a grid, a fleet, a system that spans light years, then this object isn't just visiting, it's working. You look at the old myths, the sun darkening, celestial battles, objects falling from the sky, like iron spears, and for a second you wonder, maybe they weren't stories, maybe they were sightings, misunderstood, encoded in religion and fear, because sometimes, myth is what science becomes when you're not ready for the truth. Now, here we are. And we are not ready. So what happens next? Telescopes around Mars are being repositioned. Spectrometers have been reprogrammed. And if the object passes close enough, there may be a probe, a real one, a human one, launched in haste to intercept. But let's be clear, we are out of our depth. This isn't about catching a comet. This is about identifying a potential artifact from a civilization that manipulates stars. A civilization that either doesn't care that we're watching, or wants us to. And that's the real question. Is this a show, or is this a warning? We don't know if they're friendly. We don't know if they're even aware of us. But we know one thing. They've been doing this for a long time. Because the engineering scale here isn't planetary. It's stellar. And that changes everything. Your concept of borders, gone. Your sense of isolation in the universe, obsolete. Your place in the great cosmic ladder, lower than you thought. Because if someone can build structures around stars, if someone can send probes across galaxies that operate for millions of years, quietly, flawlessly, without breaking down, then we are not the apex of anything. We are primitive, still burning chemicals to leave our own atmosphere, still fighting over oil and land and power. While something out there is wrapping suns in metal shells and sending machines light years from home. This is the moment that splits history. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. Because there's no signal, no message, just heat, movement, shadow. But it speaks louder than any transmission. They are out there. And now, we know. If you're ready to follow this mystery all the way to the edge of what's possible, if you want to be part of the story as humanity wakes up to what lies beyond the stars, then subscribe now. Because 3I/AT LACE isn't just another object, it's the start of something much bigger. Once you've seen the data, really seen it, once the patterns lock into place and the numbers start whispering things they're not supposed to, you can't return to a world where interstellar objects are just ice and dust. You can't unsee intent. 3I/AT LACE didn't just arrive, it presented itself. It didn't wander in by chance. It maneuvered into observational range at the exact window we were watching. It flared in brightness, invisible and infrared, and then slowly, surgically, it deployed structures that only make sense in the context of advanced engineering. Thin, lattice-like expansions, symmetrical and wide, not natural, not random. A configuration designed for collection or projection. This was never a comet. This was a statement. And it's not just this one object. That's the detail that shakes you awake in the middle of the night. Because if 3I/AT LACE is what it appears to be, then there's no way it's alone. Not in function, and not in origin. You're looking at a node, one terminal of a network. The others, many others have likely passed by before, quiet, undetected. Maybe disguised as long-period comets, maybe drifting in the Kuiper belt, dark and cold, waiting for a signal, and now, we saw one. Maybe the first by accident, maybe the first on purpose, and the moment we saw it, we became participants. Not because we're engaging, but because we're being watched in return. That's the kind of realization that rearranges your sense of scale. Because the question isn't are they here? The question is how long have they been watching? Long enough maybe to study our evolution, our technology, our tendency to destroy more than we build, and long enough to decide whether we're interesting or irrelevant. That's what haunts you in the quiet hours. The possibility that this isn't contact, it's evaluation. A probe observing a species nearing escape velocity, technologically curious, but still tethered to tribal wars and short-term thinking. Do we qualify, or do we fail the test? You start to re-evaluate everything. The solar system, the great silence, the Fermi paradox. It was never a question of where is everybody. It's what if they've been here all along, waiting for us to notice. And maybe this is the moment we finally looked up at the sky with enough intelligence to see the difference between chaos and code. Because the signature is there, in the synchronized motion, the mirrored objects, the chemical asymmetry, the thermal regulation, the fact that 3I/ATLAS is actively managing its own heat like a machine, not a rock. Stars don't vanish behind dust. They vanish behind infrastructure, and Cau Borealis, it didn't go supernova. It didn't collapse, it simply blinked out invisible light and kept burning in IR. That's not natural extinction, that's redirection. It's something's wrapped around that star, pulling in energy, shedding waste heat, and blocking wavelengths in the process. And 3I/ATLAS may be a fragment of that system, whether launched, detached, or fallen loose. No one knows. But the behavior says everything. It's not tumbling, it's orienting. It aligns itself to the sun, then adjusts, aligns again, then fires subtle pulses of material, too controlled to be outgassing, too small to be accidental. You've seen this before, in attitude control systems, in microthrusters, in deep space satellite navigation, but you haven't seen it from an interstellar object that predates our own technology by millennia, maybe longer. So what is it doing? Some say it's listening, some say it's transmitting. But the more unsettling theory, it's measuring, scanning magnetic fields, analyzing solar output, tracking planetary positions, compiling a profile, not for curiosity, but for compatibility, for strategic analysis, for the same reason you send a survey drone into hostile territory before landing boots. It's not warfare, it's due diligence, the movement of a civilization that doesn't make mistakes, and if they're capable of enclosing a star, of managing stellar output, of deploying synchronized interstellar probes across light years, then they don't do anything by accident. So if they're watching us now, they chose this moment. They waited for us to grow loud enough to detect them, then revealed just enough to test our awareness. A cosmic challenge. Can you see what's right in front of you? And we finally answered, yes, which leads to the next question. What happens now? Do they escalate? Do they retreat, or do they simply take notes and continue on? Maybe this was never about us. Maybe 3I/ATLAS is one of millions, seeded across the spiral arms, designed to monitor the biosphere rise and fall of every halfway promising world. And Earth, just one more name on a list. You want to believe you're special, but when you realize how old the galaxy is, how many stars have burned out and been reborn, how many planets must have come and gone, you stop asking, are we first? And start asking, are we even worth noticing? And if the answer is yes, then everything changes, because that means we're entering someone else's space, their territory, their domain. We thought the universe was empty because it was quiet, but now you start to understand. It wasn't empty, it was secure. We were free to evolve, to war, to scream into the void without consequence, because we were irrelevant. Now we're not. Now we've crossed some invisible line. Not just technologically, but perceptually. We've finally seen one of their machines. And now that we've seen it, there are only two ways forward. Either we're allowed to grow, or we're stopped before we become a threat. Because if you think a civilization capable of enclosing stars doesn't have protocols for species like us, you're kidding yourself. They do. And 3I/ATLAS may be the first step in those protocols. So what do? We don't send a greeting. We don't fire a rocket. We watch. We analyze every rotation, every signature, every deviation in course. We compare its readings to the others now moving alongside it.
Those smaller, fainter objects that look suspiciously like escorts, or drones, or harvesters, because maybe this isn't an isolated probe. Maybe this is a convoy. A star-spanning civilization might not even distinguish between exploration and exploitation. It's all part of the same process. Scan, extract, move on. Maybe the Dyson sphere around Cal Borealis wasn't built out of ambition. Maybe it was built out of necessity. And if they've moved on to our star, then the game just got real. We might not be under attack, but we may be under assessment. And if that's true, we don't get to control the outcome. All we can do is prepare, technologically, mentally, philosophically, because whether you call it a probe, a machine, or a seed of a greater intelligence, 3I/AT lease is telling us one thing. The Watchers are real. They don't speak in language, they speak in presence. They arrive slowly, silently, with heat signatures and structural shifts and impossible metals, and if we're lucky, they keep moving. There's a reason no one wants to say it outright, because once you do, once you say this thing isn't natural, that it might be built, that it might be part of a megastructure encircling a star, you can't pull that statement back. It's out there, carved into the public record, and suddenly the whole world is watching with a different kind of tension in their gut, because 3I/AT lease changes everything. It isn't just the object itself, it's what it points to. The pattern, the timing, the precision, the behavior that defies every celestial model we've relied on for over a century. Comets don't drift like this. Asteroids don't orient themselves towards solar flux. Nothing natural glides silently into the system, heats up under infrared while staying dark in visible light, and slowly unfolds like it's preparing for something. You don't get that from rock and ice, you get that from design. And now that design is hovering in our neighborhood, turning gently toward the sun, unfolding its strange, angular sails like it's waking up after a long sleep. And then comes the whisper of fear no one wants to voice. What if this is just the beginning? Because you've seen the signatures, not just the panels, not just the thermal readings, but the surrounding swarm, smaller, coordinated and moving in lockstep. Not debris, not fragments, units. You're not looking at an object anymore. You're looking at a system that behaves with the quiet confidence of something that's done this before, that has entered countless systems, always in the same formation, always moving with the same eerie elegance, and you start to understand, this isn't an isolated event, this is a process, and if we're seeing it unfold now, it means we've finally reached the technological threshold to recognize what we're looking at. This is the Fermi paradox unraveling in real time. Where is everybody? They were never gone. They were hidden in plain sight. And they're not sending messages. They're executing operations. Silent, slow, systematic. Cal Borealis wasn't the first star to vanish in the visible spectrum. It's just the first we had the sensors to notice. A star that disappeared from our telescopes, but kept glowing in infrared. A perfect surgical transition into darkness. That's not natural extinction. That's not collapse or ejection. That's engineering. You want to believe it's a fluke, that it's some exotic form of dust or gas, or an edge case scenario in stellar behavior. But then the timeline aligns. The disappearance, the thermal signature, the arrival of 3I/AT lease on a vector that traces directly back to that same star system. This object didn't come from nowhere. It came from behind the curtain. And that curtain might be the outer layer of a Dyson sphere. You know what that means. That the star itself is no longer free. It's been captured, harvested, controlled. It doesn't shine outward anymore. Not in any direction we can see. It radiates only in heat. Like a smothered furnace wrapped in metal. Someone built a shell around it. A machine. A structure. A prison. A sanctuary. We don't know. We only know what's missing: light. And now something from that same system has arrived here. Floating quietly just past Mars. No radio, no propulsion, no signals, just cold calculated momentum, just a presence. But we're not entirely blind. Spectroscopy gives us something. We're detecting heavy, non-volatile metals, cobalt, tungsten, vanadium, metals associated with fusion reactors, particle containment systems, and high-temperature alloys. You don't find these in comets. You don't find them in asteroids. You find them in machines. You know what else you find? Gamma-ray pulses, short, regulated, non-random, like beacons, or worse, like handshakes between autonomous systems. The kind of transmissions you'd expect from a coordinated fleet. Drones perhaps, each executing its assigned pattern, each checking in, not with us, but with each other. You run the math again. You look at the trajectories. You model the vectors. They're not falling toward the sun. They're slowing, entering stable orbits, one near the asteroid belt, one drifting just beyond the ecliptic, one hovering suspiciously close to a Lagrange point. That's not exploration, that's deployment. But for what? We always thought a Dyson sphere would be the signature of a civilization desperate for energy. A Kardashev Type II species, tapping every last photon from its host star, maybe even weaponizing it. But what if it's not just about power? What if it's about preservation, stellar regulation, climate control, long-term survival, or worse, a way to hibernate an entire species, wrapped around the warmth of their home star, sealed away from entropy for a billion-year sleep? And what if these probes, 3I/AT Elise and its swarm, aren't the vanguard of invasion, but the custodians of that slumber? Maintenance units, survey craft, searchers, maybe, seeking out new stars, new candidates, or threats. Maybe we're the anomaly. Maybe Earth is too bright, too noisy, too unstable to ignore. And now we're flagged, not for contact, for assessment, the ultimate audit, one we didn't apply for, one we can't opt out of. You think of what happens when we study an anthill before paving over it. We observe, we catalogue, we move the valuable species, and then we proceed. And for the first time in your life you start to wonder, are we the ants? Because if they've built structures around stars, if they've tamed thermonuclear fusion and traversed interstellar distances without decay, then we're not a threat to them. We're an experiment, a variable, a footnote. That's what 3I/AT Elise is telling us, that we are not alone, and we never have been. We're just late to the realization. Because while we've been searching for aliens through radio telescopes and space probes, they've been operating above us, quietly, efficiently, for eons. And now one of their machines is here, and it's watching. We don't know what it wants. We don't know if it wants anything at all. It may have no mission beyond observation. Or maybe the mission began the moment we detected it. Because if it came from a star wrapped in darkness, then it carries with it not just metal and purpose, but a message that civilizations don't vanish into silence. They evolve into invisibility. They stop shouting across the stars and start whispering in the heat. So what now? Do we make contact? Do we respond to the gamma pulses? Do we launch a probe, a weapon, a greeting? Or do we wait and hope whatever intelligence built this thing doesn't deem us irrelevant? This is the moment where the myth of our uniqueness collapses, where the Copernican principle becomes personal. We're not just not the center of the universe, we're not the only players in it, and we may not even be the oldest ones awake. What you're witnessing with 3I/AT Elise isn't just an astronomical anomaly, it's a cosmic reckoning, a challenge to everything you believed about the universe being passive, safe, unaware of you, because now, it knows. And if 3I/AT Elise is here, it means we're part of something so much larger, so much older, so much more calculated than we ever imagined. The galaxy isn't quiet, it's curated, and we've just entered the exhibit hall. If you believe the universe is more than just stars and silence, if you believe 3I/AT Elise is the start of a new cosmic chapter, subscribe now. Because this isn't science fiction anymore. This is a transmission, and the message is clear. We are not alone.